Today we're going to be taking a look at the new and updated version of the Siclone Silicon Chaos Initiator. So, the Siclone. This is a bit of a mad one. It's actually one of the first pedals that we started making when, or even before Zander was a thing. And I think we might do a video on the history of this because it had quite a few different versions over the years. This, I'm pretty certain, will be the final form of the Siclone because we've changed it quite a lot, and I'm really happy with how it's sounding now. We've updated the transistors, which kind of bring a completely new feel and also interaction with how the controls work. It allows you to dial in some of those more like the same sounds that you'd have from the previous versions, but also gives a little bit more variety, as I think the transistors we were using in previous versions almost didn't allow as much flexibility. They kind of had a very set sound, whereas these seem to react a hell of a lot more to the controls. One of the other biggest changes is the body control. So previously it worked as more of a low-end control, and it was kind of subtle, whereas we've tweaked it more now so that either end you've got kind of extremes of much thinner and then much fatter, and then in between you get like a weird blend of the two but slightly less gain. It's a strange one, but it works well, and it allows you to take the fuzz from more of that kind of extreme oscillating octave kind of sound through to more of a traditional fuzz, or sometimes even like overdrive sounds on some settings. And then there's the more obvious hardware changes. So it's in a new box, a much smaller size, the new custom knobs that are nice and matching, and then also you've still got the updated soft switching that works both momentary and latching. The switching is a little bit different on the Siclone, as you'll see in the demo, because it's not two effects that you're switching between. It's just parts of one effect that you're bringing in and out of the circuit. We've tried to get the switching to work as logically as possible. So the fuzz switch is the main bypass switch, if you will. It activates all 8 controls. And then the tone off switch bypasses the tone stack, so it bypasses the bright and punch controls, which gives a much more kind of open, full frequency kind of sound rather than it being forced through the tone stack. The main difference between this version of the Siclone and the previous versions is that you can actually get to this bypass tone setting from bypass. You don't have to have the fuzz switch on first, which you had to in the previous versions. So how it works is if you're going to use latching mode, obviously you just step on and off of it like you would a normal pedal. If you want to use it in momentary, all you do is press and hold it down for the length of time that you want, and when you release it, it will turn itself off. The difference with the switching here is that, say you've already got the fuzz setting on and you want to bypass the tone stack just for a small amount of time, you can use the tone off switch momentarily and then it will bounce back to the full fuzz sound. For those that aren't familiar with the Siclone or its previous versions, it basically started life as a silicon fuzz face, taking a lot of inspiration from the Zevex Fuzz Factory, where they've kind of taken that similar kind of circuit and just torn it apart and added in a load of additional pots that kind of break it to make it do crazy oscillating octave stuff. So you've got your level and fuzz controls, which are fairly self-explanatory. The bright control is a tone knob, so it lets you go from like a really kind of muffled sound through to super bright. Punch works interactively with the tone stack, so it kind of adds in more of a mid-range, and then all the way down it's more scooped. Body allows you to alter the low end kind of going into the circuit, so it's like an input cap blend that lets you go between like a much thinner sound and then a fatter sound. So depending on what kind of pickups you're using and what amp you're running into, you might prefer it one way or the other. And then the weirder ones up top are the shunt, squash, and starve controls. Shunt kind of acts like a gate control, so it makes the decay of the note very spitty and gated. Squash really compresses the attack of the note, so you can kind of go between a much more open sound and one that's kind of heavily compressed on the attack. And then starve drains the circuit of voltage. So when it's all the way down, you've got that more traditional kind of fuzz face type sound, and then as you kind of drain it more, you can get into those kind of weird gated effects where it starts to make the circuit break and behave in different ways. That's a very broad overview of what these controls do. Obviously they work very interactively, so as you start twisting one, you'll realize that the other one will do something else, or on certain settings it might seem like one of the controls isn't really doing much at all because it's already been kind of broken into that way. So it's definitely one for the experiment, as it kind of does pretty much everything that you want a fuzz to do. So let's check it out. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. Really hope that you enjoyed this demo of the new version of the Siclone. If you like this video, please leave a comment below, like and subscribe to our channel. As always, don't forget about our social media pages, and we'll see you next time.